Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Friday, and the doors are locked, and your cell phone is disabled, and I have at my disposal every Andy Williams album ever made. So it's time for a little TBR torture. I have 6 books I want to show you. I have read none of them. We will be going through them together. The first one is a novel. Now, I haven't read this novel, but I have read the author's previous novel, and I loved it. This is by Brock Clark, who some of you will know as the author of An Arsonist Guide to the Writers' Homes in New England, which I thought was terrific. I just loved it. And this is his next book, which comes out later in August. This is called Who Are You, Calvin Bledsoe? Let me tell you a little bit about it so that so we'll both know where we are here. Let's see. Oh, God, the guy's doing a ton of press for this book. I hope the publisher is picking up the slack for the travel. At age 49, Calvin Bledsoe has not wandered far from home. He still attends every one of his high school coach's father's games, and every Sunday listens to his mother, a minister and world-renowned John Calvin scholar, preach in the little Maine town where he grew up. When his parents die within months of each other, this self-effacing blogger for the pellet stove industry is suddenly on the verge of a new kind of perhaps unwelcome freedom from attachments. But when his eccentric Aunt Beatrice shows up at his mother's funeral and insists that Calvin accompany her on a trip to Europe, he's too polite to say no. Once on the continent, Beatrice's wild ways lead to dangerous encounters, and Calvin begins to suspect that there is a lot he doesn't know about his aunt and her associations. Can he find some deeper meaning about life from this madness? It sounds similar in some ways to the author's previous book. I really like the previous book because this is an author who writes really well, really clearly, really evocatively, wonderful set-piece scenes, but has not a bit of artsy-fartsy about him. So I will probably enjoy it. We will see. It's coming right up, so all of these things, this one will be one of the things that is on the agenda. This next one is a November book. It's mildly intriguing in a wearing kind of way. It is not coming right up, but it can still be part of TBR torture just in case. It certainly qualifies as torture. This is by Gerald Post, and it is called Dangerous Charisma: The Political Psychology of Donald Trump and His Followers. And this is by a psychiatrist. This is the longtime head of psychological profiling at the CIA, puts President Trump under the psychiatric microscope, examining the unique connections between Trump and his base. Offering an in-depth psychological and political portrait of what makes Donald Trump tick, although keep in mind it can't do that, because you need to talk with the patient in order to do that. This is speculation from a guy who has a professional degree, but still, it's speculation. Dangerous Charisma combines psychoanalysis with an investigation into the personality of the current American president. This narrative not only examines the life and psychology of Donald Trump, but will also provide an analysis of the charismatic psychological tie between Trump and his followers. I have said many times on this channel that I am reading these things so that you don't have to. I am determined to read every major Trump book as they come out. I am determined to do that. That is the price you pay for doing what I do in the administration of Trump. So I don't know how that counts as torture. It certainly counts as torture in one form for me. This next one is a collection of short comedy skits that I'm pretty sure its publisher wants to call essays, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And this comes out in October. This is by Gary Janetti, and it's called Do You Mind If I Cancel Things That Still Annoy Me? And Gary Janetti is a writer and producer for some of the most popular television comedies of all time, the creator of one of the most wickedly funny Instagram accounts there is, and now he turns his skills to the page in a hilarious and poignant book chronicling the pains and indignities of everyday life. Do you mind if I cancel? Gary spends his 20s in New York dreaming of starring on soap operas while in reality working at a hotel, battling a bellman who despises it when people actually use a bell to call him. He writes about the joys of falling in love, with a little assistance from Patti LuPone, and he fantasizes, as we all do, about just who to tell off when he finally wins an Oscar. As Gary himself says, these are essays from my childhood and young adulthood about things that still annoy me. I'm sure they still annoy him, but they are not essays. They are comedy skits, but that's okay. They can be comedy skits. I'm sure that somewhere on here he's compared to David Sedaris. David Sedaris is routinely called an essayist now. Fans of David Sedaris, Jenny Lawson, and Tina Fey. Okay, but still, there could be very very chuckle-worthy lines scattered throughout there. Then we have another book, another November book, but I thought I would trot it on in front of you because this also seems fairly funny. This is by Dana Schwartz with illustrations by Jason Katzenstein, and it's called The White Man's Guide to White Male Writers of the Western Canon. And the white man on the cover is saying, actually, it reminded me of an online joke, a Twitter joke, where do mansplainers get their water? Well, actually, they get it from a well, actually. I'm not supposed to snort. And this is just a spoof on pretentious hipster lovers of snooty contemporary literary fiction. Who better than the unjustifiably overconfident guy in your MFA to mansplain the most important writers of Western literature? You can't miss him. Riding the L, writing furiously in his moleskin notebook, outside a Williamsburg coffee shop. He's read Infinite Jest 9.5 times. Have you? From Shakespeare's greatest mystery, how could a working-class man without access to an MFA program be so prolific? To the true meaning of Kafkaesque, this guide is at once profound and practical. Use a Venn diagram to test your knowledge of which Jonathan, Franzen, Latham, or Saffron Foer hates Twitter and lives in Brooklyn. Practice slyly responding to an invitation to discuss Bartleby the Scrivener with "I would prefer not to." Sneer at Chicklet and drink mojitos like Hemingway. And this is all just that. It's how to be a pretentious douche canoe. So again, like with the who was this guy's name? Gary Janetti. Like with Gary Janetti, there will probably be chuckles in the book. I will wait until November for both of them because they're trifles. But these next two are out right now. They're in bookstores right now. And the reason I know that is because I bought them both at Barnes & Noble just today. So they're two romances, and I will not be waiting on them. They will go on the immediate pile with a bunch of other books that you've seen today. The first one is a reprint from 2000, I think, or 2011. But in 2011, it never looked like this. This is Grace Burrows. I don't think I've read this. This is The Wyndham, The Duke's Obsession. That's the series, and this was called The Soldier. And I don't recall a cover like that. So I'll be reading this. I don't think I ever had this. I should look and see. I should look, usually with things like this, with reissues, I look and see on Amazon if I recognize the earlier cover, but I don't think so. I vaguely remember the book, but I don't think I ever read it. In fact, if I remember correctly, the original cover had a clothed man. It was a more cloistered time. And then the next one is Lenora Bell. I'm not sure how many Lenora Bell novels I've read. This is for the book in the School for Dukes series, and this is called One Fine Duke. And I don't know that I remember. Okay, the School for Dukes series include What a Difference a Duke Makes, which I think I did read, and For the Duke's Eyes Only, which I don't think I did. Or maybe it's more than that. I could swear I've read one book by this author. But these are two, modern Regency romances. You've seen me go on and on about Signet Regency romances that aren't made anymore, that were very much, in a way, prim and proper. They were the old style Regency romances, the thinner books, 200 pages maximum, were characterized by witty wordplay, absurd social situations, a vying of personalities between the Darcy-esque man and the Eliza Bennet-esque woman, all throughout the course of the book, through mishaps and misunderstandings, until finally they fall into each other's arms, and we know they're going to marry. Those Regencies have been phased out. I don't think anybody writes them anymore. They ended, I think, the last few were at the turn of the 20th century, the end of the 20th century. After that, you get Regencies like this. Now, these are set in roughly the same time period. And they have some of the same frills. Some of the better Regency romance writers who write these new ones will have very good wordplay. But as you can tell, there's nothing coquettish about these things. The characters, the covers are extremely suggestive. The the interpersonal action is extremely subjective in ways that a Signet Regency romance, or for instance, Regency novels from the period, would never dream of being. Never. So there you go. That is some Friday TBR torture for you. We've got a bunch of November releases, or 3 November releases and 3 fictional releases that are right around the corner, are out right now. So I'm going to try these 2. I don't know how much interest these are going to have for most of the rest of you, except for Sarah, my sister from another mister, who will probably know these authors. But I bet some of you have read Brock Clark's previous book. I'm not sure. I wasn't on BookTube when Arsonist Guide to the Writer's Homes in New England came out. I don't know if it was a BookTube darling. But one way or another, those are some Friday books for your consideration. So I'm gonna wrap this up. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.